I think the most evil organizations in the world today are the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Number one, America is never going to pay its debts. It doesn't have to. Its debts are in its own currency. We can simply print it.
I don't know if President William Ruto means it, because he said so many things and I can't locate him these days, because the things he said during election and the things he's doing now are two different things.
Wait a minute. How long are you going to sit around begging white people to do for us what we have the power to do for ourselves?
Never you say no to World Bank, otherwise they will rub your face on the ground. But never you do their bidding.
Across Africa, a dangerous truth is echoing louder than ever: the IMF and World Bank aren't saviors, they are predators eating Africa's futures. They promised development and prosperity but delivered destruction and poverty. Today, we expose how these global financial powers crushed Africa's future and why the price is still being paid. If you're new here, welcome to Afriscope TV, where Africa speaks, the diaspora listens, and truth hits harder than headlines. Tap like and subscribe button, and let's expose the truth together. In Kenya, chaos erupted in the streets as deadly riots broke out over crushing tax hikes, widely blamed on IMF-imposed economic conditions. Protesters chanted, "IMF, keep your hands off Kenya," calling out the fund's invisible hand in their suffering.
Poor African countries have the lowest wage workers in the world, and yet a company like Nike, for instance, can't put a factory in one of those countries because of the oppressive tax rates. Taxes have killed any possibility of economic development. They've killed any hope of these countries ever helping themselves, and that leaves them completely at the mercy of charity and loans. And here's the worst part. You know why those countries have such high tax rates? Because of us, to show us that they can raise enough money to pay back their loans. But taxes can't raise any money if they kill the economies. So it turns out that the tragic, unintended consequence of our good intentions toward Africa, our kindness, is that we have encouraged those countries to lock themselves into a gruesome economic depression. If we don't urge those countries to cut their tax rates, they will never grow their economies. People will live lifetimes of unemployment.
Across the continent, Pan-African voices like Julius Malema criticized Kenya's leadership, suggesting that President Ruto's submissive body language undermined the weight of his words, thereby exposing a deeper posture of dependency.
I don't know if President William Ruto means it, because he said so many things and I can't locate him these days, because the things he said during election and the things he's doing now are two different things. I don't know, because I heard him saying we need to do away with the dollar and build our own currency, but his actions are not speaking to anything of doing away with the dollar. The latest being putting a red carpet for a murderer, a person who killed the Kenyan people, coming into this country, receiving a red carpet and being saluted by our own army. This is not a Kenyan army, it's not a colonialist army. The Kenyan army is a product of the Mau Mau rebellion, and those who killed our people in the Mau Mau rebellion cannot be saluted by the same army of the children of those who were killed during Mau Mau rebellion.
In Nigeria, President Tinubu's sudden fuel subsidy removal and electricity tariff hike sent shockwaves through the nation. Experts say these drastic moves are straight from the IMF and World Bank's playbook, an old script called Structural Adjustment Programs, or SAPs, repackaged for a new era.
The IMF wanted Nigeria to adopt what it called a Structural Adjustment Program. However, implementing this Structural Adjustment Program came with high costs that hit Nigerians hard. First, the SAP involved devaluing the Nigerian naira, which meant that the local currency became weaker against foreign currencies. From 1986 to 1990, the naira's value dropped significantly, making imported goods much more expensive. This had a big impact on local businesses and consumers. Industries that relied on imported raw materials saw their costs skyrocket, and many had to close down or lay off workers. Prices of basic goods went through the roof, creating inflation which affected the poorest Nigerians the most. As the effects of these policies persisted, the IMF continued to loan money to Nigeria with new agreements in 1989, 1991, 2000, and even 2020. Today, Nigerians are still feeling the effects of decades of these economic policies. And despite all of these loans, the economic situation is still tough. The naira has lost a lot of its value in the last 1 year. Prices for everything from food to fuel are high, and poverty levels remain troubling for Nigerians. It seems that following these policies from the IMF and World Bank has not created the prosperity that Nigerians hoped for. One of the harshest realities African countries face with IMF loans is the debt cycle. When you take an IMF loan, you are not only paying back the principal amount, but sometimes there are steep interest involved. This creates a snowball effect where debt piles up faster than economies can grow. By the early 2000s, Sub-Saharan Africa was paying $15 billion each year just in debt repayments, which was way more than the total aid, loans, or investment it was receiving. Imagine trying to build a thriving economy when nearly every penny you earn goes towards paying off debt. Between 1980 and 2004, Africa sent about $229 billion to the West in debt repayments. In fact, while African nations worked hard to export goods and generate revenue, that money was flowing right back to wealthy countries instead of staying on the continent to help fund growth and development. As African countries were forced to cut down on social services, the quality of life for citizens went down. Now we have unemployment soaring, wages falling, and the cost of basic necessities like food and fuel have gone up. And because African countries were still reliant or are still reliant on exporting raw materials, the benefits of these loans primarily serve Western economies rather than African economies. Now, while IMF loans may have provided temporary relief, they often come at a high price. And for many countries, this raises serious questions as to whether these loans truly help or are just another means of control.
The first question is a very important question. What makes African and third world debt different from the American debt? Number one, America is never going to pay its debts. It doesn't have to. Its debts are in its own currency. We can simply print it. The African debt is not in its currency. The African debt is in US dollars. Africa has to earn the US dollars, and the only way it can earn the US dollars is not to be assassinated for growing its own food and becoming independent and doing something that the United States does not like. The principle underlying the foundation of the World Bank, the International Bank for IBRD, research, the World Bank, is that no country should grow its own food. Africa and the third world should only grow export crops. To export, in order to have an oversupply of cocoa and other tropical raw materials, to keep down the price, they must buy their grain from the United States or Europe, so that if they do something that we don't like, we can do what America tried to do to China in the 60s. We can sanction them. We can say, we're going to starve you. We're going to not export any grain to you. So owing their foreign debt in dollars means that they have to somehow sell something that the United States wants, not what they want. I think the most evil organizations in the world today are the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund.
Dangers ahead. Africa pays over $20 billion annually in debt servicing, more than it spends on education or health. Now, the IMF and World Bank are eyeing our natural resources. Our children may be born into debt slavery without resistance. Recently, the Nigerian government repaid a $3.4 billion COVID-19 loan to the IMF. But analysts warn the true cost wasn't just the money, it was our sovereignty.
Nigeria just finished paying back $3.4 billion loan to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Great, right? Nope. Let me break it down. We got the money during COVID, just like many other African and global South countries. Then came the conditions: remove fuel subsidies, devalue the national currency, open the economy for more foreign control. What followed? Hunger, protests, broken systems. Now they are clapping because the debt is paid off. But what about the social debt? The lives broken, the schools unfunded, the food unaffordable. The IMF is not here to help us. It's here to restructure us into obedience. Nigeria paid back the money, but the real cost was our sovereignty.
Behind the repayment lies a deeper debt, policy control, economic dependency, and a shrinking voice in our own future. Africa doesn't need saviors, it needs sovereignty. If the IMF and World Bank keep dictating our future, we must have the courage to say a no. What do you think? Should Africa cut ties with the IMF and World Bank? What alternatives must we explore? Drop your thoughts below. Like, share, subscribe to Afriscope TV, where we expose lies and amplify African truth. Disclaimer. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. Afriscope TV does not promote hate, violence, or misinformation. All content is based on publicly available data and expert commentary. Viewers are encouraged to think critically and verify independently.